Hi, and welcome back to Leia's Library. Find yourself a cozy corner, get yourself a cozy tea, and let's get started. Today is our January wrap-up, so we will be doing a look through of all the books that I read in January of 2023. And this was January wrap-up of 2022 was the first video I posted on this channel, so look how far we've come. I forgot to put on lipstick. Oh well, I'm too lazy now. Let's get on with it. Wait, that's not what I say. Let's get into it. I take a break for 1 week and I already forget how to do things. So in case you missed the description of my last video, I was very sick for a while. It wasn't the vid, it was just a very bad cold, but it was the second one I've had in like 3 years, so I feel like my body has just forgotten how to deal with illness. So now when I get a cold, it's awful. Yeah, anyway, that's why I missed a week, and then I had my bookshelf tour, so this is the first real video I've done in a while, so wish me luck. Alright, what am I doing? Right. So the first book that I read in January was Before They Are Hanged by Joe Abercrombie, which is an adult epic fantasy. It is the sequel to The Blade itself and the second in the third Law trilogy. This is really hot. I made this way too hot. Oh my goodness, I can't even touch it. A thing that I'm going to try to be doing from now on is mentioning content warnings, because I find them really helpful. And I will normally bring one up if there's like a very notable one, but I'm gonna try to do it for all of them. We'll see how it goes. But so content warnings for this one are violence, pretty graphic violence, chronic pain, and attempted essay. So the first book was all about these characters coming together, and now we finally have a plot. A couple, in fact. Wow. I say it, I don't know why I said it like that. I don't mind books that are very character focused or character driven. I really like the first one. But yeah, it's just, this is the first book in the trilogy that really has a more defined plot. So yeah, I actually don't have a whole lot to say about it. Other than that, I really enjoyed it. And I love the way these characters interact with each other. They're all kind of like varying degrees of not good people, and it's interesting to see how they play against each other or play off each other. It's a very solid grimdark fantasy. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Next I read Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi, which is an adult contemporary magical realism. It is about, so there is this small cafe in Tokyo that has the ability to transport people back in time, with the condition that they must return to the present before their coffee gets cold. The book follows 4 patrons of the cafe who make use of the cafe's time-traveling offer in order to fix something in their current lives. So content warnings, pregnancy, Alzheimer's, illness, and death. So the premise of this book is very good, and overall it's pretty cute. Nothing amazing, but it's cute enough. I thought I was really gonna like it, and I just didn't like it as much as I thought it would. And the more I think about it, the less I actually like it, which is unfortunate. So this book has 4 different sort of mini stories, and some of them are a lot more compelling than others. One thing that I noticed that was kind of bothersome to me was that the way it was written made it feel like it was serialized, or like it felt like each story kind of came out individually, and then this book just kind of put them all together, because for each story it repeats every single rule for traveling back in time, and there are only 4 stories. The book's like 100 pages long. I did not need an entire list of rules every 15 or so pages. My memory is good enough to retain that. So that was really annoying. But the bigger thing is that the women in this book, they're something. They sure are something. With the exception of two of them, they just feel like caricatures. And I understand that there are cultural differences at play here. I lived in Japan for a bit, so I do have firsthand experience with some of those cultural differences. Those between some of the cultural differences between my Canadian upbringing and Japanese society. But even with that knowledge, these things just didn't sit right with me. I'll start with the less egregious of them, which so one of the stories is about this very successful Japanese businesswoman. I guess I didn't need to specify Japanese. This takes place in Tokyo. You can just assume they're all Japanese. So a very successful businesswoman whose boyfriend of a while, they've been together for a significant time, if I recall correctly, just one day up and leaves her for a new job in the US, gives her no notice. He tells her on his way to the airport. Okay. And she's very distraught by this, obviously, who wouldn't be? But she still has to get back together with him. Which, okay, sure. I don't get it, personally. And spoiler for the end, they do end up together. And she ends up leaving her very successful business job that she finds very fulfilling to run a little cafe with him as if she's in a Hallmark movie. Why is she with him? Why? I don't get it. Why? Now that was the least egregious. It gets worse. So next one is another woman who is married to a man who is struggling with early onset Alzheimer's. And when she talks about their relationship before the Alzheimer's set in, he's a douchebag. He's so rude to her. He's like not quite to the level of abusive, but like he's walking up to the line. He's just so rude and mean to her all the time for the dumbest things. So there's this point that she talks about early in their relationship. He lived, it was long distance, so she would send him letters and she would pour her heart and soul into these letters describing everything that happened in her day and her week and her month, however long it was. And he would reply back with just like a couple words. And this went on for a while until he asked her to marry him and she said yes. And it turns out that the reason why he did that was because he actually didn't know how to read. So he would just skim her letters and, you know, he would pick up maybe a word or two and then he'd just write some like platitude back like, glad you're having a good time, or that sounds nice. And it's written as if that's supposed to be super romantic, but I just find that so disrespectful. Like, she's taking so much time to write out so many thoughtful things, and you can't, like, I mean, obviously he can't read, so that is a problem, but he could ask somebody to translate. He could, if he doesn't want, you know, someone that he knows to know personal information, he could have hired somebody to translate. He could have learned to read, perhaps, which, you know, isn't easy, but at least there would have been an effort. But no, he didn't do that. He just would write back some sort of vague platitude, and then they got married. Okay. And then he's just rude to her for their whole marriage. So like, and now we've come to the last one, and oh boy, okay. So this story, if you take it out of context, it is one of the more compelling stories. It's not the most compelling. That would be the sister one, and that's the one where with one of the few female characters where it's like actually decent. I like it. Well done. But this one, let me explain. So this one is about a woman with a very serious heart condition who is pregnant, very heavily pregnant. She's well into her pregnancy. And I want to just preface this by saying I'm not saying that people with serious heart conditions shouldn't necessarily have children. I'm sure with modern medicine there are many safe ways to be pregnant and to give birth safely, for both parent and baby. But this woman is told specifically at the beginning of her pregnancy, actually I think even before her pregnancy, she's told, if you get pregnant, giving birth will basically 100% kill you and may also kill the baby. But she still decides to go through with it because she really wants to bring a child into the world, I guess. Even if she doesn't live to raise it. I honestly don't know if there's any other reasoning given. She just really wants to have a child. She just really wants to bring a child in. I can't even say have a child because she knows she's gonna die, so like she won't have one. There will just be a child that she brings into the world, and that, I guess that's what she wants. But she has this very touching moment with her, so she meets her daughter in the future, and she finds out that she died giving birth to her, and she tells her daughter, I'm sorry that the only thing I could do was bring you into the world. And again, taken out of context, that moment is very effective and is very touching, but the way this was painted as some sort of tragic, noble sacrifice, and like tragic, noble, inevitable sacrifice, just left a bad taste in my mouth, because she was told by several doctors that having a baby would kill her, but she still chose. Her still choosing to do it sort of read to me like my only purpose as a woman is to bring a child into the world. Whether or not I live to raise it is irrelevant. And that, like, yes, this is a choice someone is allowed to make. But we also have to remember that this is not a real person. This is a character that was created by an author, and kind of relevant to mention, the author is a man. So when this woman gets back from her time travel to meet her daughter, and she's, content with the fact that she's going to die because she sees that her daughter is going to be okay, it's like, but you didn't know that when you decided to get pregnant. You like, it was too late. You've already made this choice. So she chose to have a baby knowing that there was a 99% chance that she would die, meaning she would leave a child to be raised without a mother, meaning that she would be leaving her husband to be a single father while also maintaining a business because he runs this cafe, while also leaving him to mourn for his dead wife who left behind a newborn. And it just rubbed me so hard the wrong way. It was giving very Bella from Twilight. It was giving very pro-life. And I'm not here for it. Also, just to clarify, I'm not saying I'm not saying one needs to grow up with a mother or two parents in order to be happy or successful in life. There are plenty of children who grow up in single parent households and they're doing great. But this particular set of circumstances, that really irked me. On a lighter note, because this book is translated from Japanese, there are some odd sentences that I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt and blame on translation, because some of them are just odd, like this one. The girl expertly spread the butter on the toast and took a hungry mouthful. She kept on munching. She had a wonderful way of eating. Alright. Alright, I gave it 2.5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read A Tale for the Time Being by Ruth Ozeki, which is an adult magical realism. Another one. So this story has 2 POV characters. One is Nao, who is a... How did I say that? Now, I guess they pronounce it now. I would have said now, but I guess it's now. So Nao, who is a 16-year-old Japanese girl living in Tokyo, who decides to end her life after suffering years of horrific bullying and loneliness. But before she does, she wants to write down the story of her great-grandmother, who is a Buddhist monk who's lived to be over 100 years old. The second POV character is Ruth, a Japanese-American novelist living in British Columbia, who finds Nao's diary washed up on the shore. As Ruth reads the diary, she is pulled into Nao's life, as well as into her own future. Content warning: self-death, discussions of SA, attempted essay, and bullying. The first word that I wrote down about this book, and the one I keep coming back to, is spellbinding. The storytelling in this is just phenomenal. It's very enthralling. It draws you in. It felt like I was being pulled into the story just as much as Ruth was. There are parts in this book that are really heartbreaking, and there are parts that are really uplifting and hopeful, and what better metaphor for life is there, really? There's so much in this book that is haunting and thought-provoking. There's a lot of philosophizing on time and humanity and the simple act of being. And it's all wrapped up in this incredibly powerful narrative with this really strong voice that Nao has. I'm so glad I read it, and I highly recommend it if you don't mind the occasional sads. I give it 5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read The First to Die at the End by Adam Silvera, which is a YA LGBTQ+ contemporary romance. Wow, I said that all in one breath. This is the prequel to They Both Die at the End. So this takes place on the first night of Deathcast. Our 2 main characters are Orion, who signed up for Deathcast because he has a lifelong chronic heart condition that means he could die at any moment, and he just wants advance notice. Our other main character is Valentino, who just moved to New York to follow his dreams, and who only signed up for Deathcast because of a near-fatal car accident that his twin sister got into. The 2 meet in Times Square and form a quick connection, but then the first end day calls go out and one of them receives a call. So content warning: death, illness, mild homophobia, shooting, and murder. God damn it, Adam Silvera did it again. I was initially hesitant about this book because it sounded very similar to They Both Die at the End. And to be fair, it is. There are a lot of the same themes, but there's just enough slight differences that make it a worthwhile read. I compared it to The House in the Cerulean Sea versus Under the Whispering Door, which are also 2 books that are basically the same but ever so slightly different. And also both worthwhile reads. Whoa. This book made me cry. And not a lot of books can do that. There were tears on my face. Granted, when I was reading the part that made me cry, I was super sleep deprived and going through a bout of insomnia at 3:30 in the morning, and incredibly sick. So I'm sure those factored in too, but I'll give it to it because it was so tragically beautiful, and I love these characters so much. I would say probably best to start with They Both Die at the End. I mean, you could start with this one, but I think it might be a better experience if you read They Both Die at the End first. I give 4.5 out of 5 stars. And the last book that I read in January was Hollowpox by Jessica Townsend. Oh wait, I still have it. I haven't returned it to the library yet because I finished it like 2 days ago. Hollowpox by Jessica Townsend, which is a middle grade fantasy. It is the 3rd installment in the Nevermore series. So because it's a middle grade, there aren't too many content warnings. Just bigotry and discussions thereof. And we'll get into that. So, I compare this series to Harry Potter pretty frequently. I kind of describe it as like Harry Potter meets Alice in Wonderland. But the way that I normally explain this series to somebody is that it's basically Harry Potter without any of the problematic elements, or a bigoted author. And I was very content with that. And then this book decided that, you know what? That's not enough. This book went hard. Oh, J.K. Rowling is doubling down on her dangerous misinformation and transphobia? Well, how about we make a whole book on how being a bigot is not only a terribly awful thing to do, but also stupid. So, in this world, there are these beings called Wunimals. There's actually some on the cover. So they're essentially, they look like animals, but they have human level intelligence. So a Wunimal that looks like a fox would be called a Fox One. A Wunimal that looks like a bear is a Bear One, etc. All to just kind of differentiate them from regular animals, which are called animals in this. The main plot in this story is that there is an illness called the Hollowpox going around that is infecting Wunimals, and it causes them to exhibit very violent behavior. And this brings all the bigots out of hiding to decry that Wunimals basically shouldn't be given the same rights as other citizens. Sound familiar? Here are some quotes that really hit home for me. So this is a conversation that Morrigan and one of her friends, Hawthorne, are having with an individual who has certain beliefs towards Wunimals. "She's not a dog," Hawthorne said loudly. "She's a dog one." They turned as one to look down their noses at him. The man scoffed. "Dog one. Rubbish. If it's got 4 legs, a wet nose, and a tail, it's a dog. In my day, we called things by their real names, and none of this horse one, rabbit one, lizard one nonsense. I'm sick of having to be so respectful all the time. Dog one," he finished, shaking his head and downing his cocktail in one. Morrigan turned to her friends, nonplussed. What's wrong with being respectful? It's really not that hard. It's really not that hard to be respectful when someone tells you something about themselves. It's not. This was another one that really hit. This is said by Fenestra the Magnificat, who is not a Wunimal. They're a different species, but they're essentially giant cats that also have human level intelligence. "We don't ignore bigotry, Jack," said Fenestra. "That's how cowardly bigots turn into brave bigots." And I just love that that's in a middle grade, essentially children's book. I love that so much. I can't fully express how much I love that. So yeah, this is your reminder to not be a bigot. If you think a certain group of people doesn't deserve the same rights and respect you receive, stop to ask yourself why that is. Why do you think that? If there is something that you don't understand about a certain community, look it up. The internet has several resources. Not all of them are good, so, if you're looking up studies, make sure they are peer-reviewed and done by actual scientists and not nobodies. But do some research, talk to people in the community. But if you do talk to people in the community, be respectful and go in knowing that no single individual owes you answers. They may choose to not answer you, and that's fully within their right. And just be a good person. You don't have to fully understand something in order to be respectful and civil about it. That's the end of my spiel. All that to say, this book's fantastic. 5 out of 5 stars. And those are all the books that I read in January. If I had to pick a favorite, I'd probably go with Hollowpox. I just loved it so much. Shortly followed by The First to Die at the End. Oh, but then again, Tale for the Time Being was also really good. I read a lot of really good books this month. My least favorite was Before the Coffee Gets Cold. It's the only one I didn't like. Yeah, let me know what you read in January, or if you have any thoughts on these books, I would love to hear them. If you'd like to find me elsewhere, you can find me on Instagram as Leia Like the Princess, where you can also find my little embroidery and art store, Moonlit Cat Creations, or you can go directly to its website at moonlightcatcreations.com. Thank you so much again for watching, and until next time, don't be a bigot, and stay cozy.